What is up, everyone? Nino here. Now, straight away, I want you to know what you're looking at here is a bunch of AI images. Now, these were created by artist Luca Storelli out of Italy. And he's an amazing photographer and color grading artist and visionary, and he's just incredible at all the work he does. And he's really taken on to MidJourney, which is one of the AI visual art producing platforms that's out there. And I always love what Luca creates. I understand that AI art is controversial to a lot of people, and I understand why. But at the same time, a lot of people are leveraging it and creating beautiful, striking visuals that still drive you in and tell a story and things of that nature. So AI art is here to stay, as it were. I had a podcast episode about it and had my thoughts on the whole subject, but that's not what I'm here to discuss. I'm here to try to show you how NBP tools can be leveraged to modify your AI art in ways that maybe you didn't think about. Perhaps you didn't recognize that images are images and NBP tools can be used for anything. And one of the key things that I think is important to show is complicated selections using Photoshop, because a lot of times we'll get an image out of MidJourney or DALL-E 2 or the other ones, and you like it and you think, if only I didn't get that exact color or shade or that specific spot, I wish it was a different thing or whatever. And then you're tasked in Photoshop to make modifications. And we can always make complicated, detailed selections with pen tools and other things and detailed masks, but we can also do these things quicker. Okay, so let's talk about it for a minute. Let's talk about this image for a second. Now, Luca made this one. I don't know what his whole vision was or his prompt was, but it's a beautiful shot as is. So I'm not trying to suggest that it should change. But let's say I did want to change it. Let's say I liked what MidJourney gave me. And I thought, well, that powder blue, both on the, the collar here and these flowers in the hair and the flowers in the face and the makeup, the powder blue, not really feeling it. I kind of wish it was a warm tone or something like that. And I think, no worries, I'm going to make some changes. Cool. So you come in here and you go to your hue and saturation layer and you choose perhaps cyans and you see if that's making a difference. And you're like, okay, yeah, it is making a difference. That's kind of cool. But I don't have everything. So I'm going to go to the blues and see if that makes a difference. And it does. That's pretty cool. I like that. Okay, so I've got my green tones that I think are going to work. Let's make it a little bit more red. Yeah, let's go back to cyans here and make it a little bit more orange. And you're like, all right, this sort of works. Well, I don't have it all completely here. Okay, all right, so I'm going to increase the range a bit. Let's see if I can capture some of that. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. That's kind of cool. All right, well, this is a little sloppy here on the eye. And I got the selection isn't quite right up here. There's still some blue areas that I don't know how I feel about. And what if I want to use that selection right now to do something else, like add a curves? I want to brighten or darken. What if I want to put a gradient map over what I just changed? Well, I've succeeded in making my selection reddish, but there's problems and I can't use the selection to do anything with it. Okay, typical normal Photoshop problems on a complicated selection. So what do we do? Well, here's what we do. First things first, let's do an image analysis, okay? So with Actions 15, which is our, advanced selections tools, we have a maximum SB, which is saturation and brightness maximizing. It's really a hue map is what it is. So we'll duplicate the background image, and then I'm going to run that. And we're going to look at the situation. So if we look at our hues, we can see what happened earlier, okay? We know we have our blues and cyans in the flowers, mostly, okay? But down here on the collar, for example, the fringes are actually in the green range, okay? So that's what's throwing us off there. It's a little more difficult to get. But if we start applying that, we might start seeing the green over here. Don't know. What happened on our eyelid and the makeup, of course, was that we have a lot of different shifting here. We have reds right here as well. So we have to see how well this could work for us as is, or I'm going to go ahead and duplicate another copy. Sometimes when you're doing a complicated range selection of a hue, sometimes you need to take whatever the image is and try to clean up its white balance. And we do that often with curves and auto. And then we'll find one of these choices that looks like it's cleaning things up maybe a little bit. Okay, so we go to our advanced, color correction options here, and we choose, one of these and snap neutral midtones, etc. And now we have a little bit of brightening maybe, and just a touch perhaps of some white balance fixing. So we're going to run our visualizer again and compare and contrast. So here it is without white balance fixing. Here it is with white balance fixing. Without, with, Very, very minimal. It looks like it's pretty clean, unless we want to try something more radical, but I think we'll bring out too many blues in that. So I think we're going to work with the image as is. Okay, the visualizer is cool, and that hue map will come back in a little bit to make an appearance. So let's go ahead and try to run this. Okay, so we're going to run the hue range selection advanced subject, only because, well, the background isn't really an issue. We can mask that out quickly. Let's go ahead and just run it. So mask out the subject anyway. All right, so now we're going to go to we have videos on the details of all of this, but we're going to do it kind of quick here. We're going to go to our cyans, just choose one and peg it bright. We're going to turn on our hue map so we can see exactly what's going on. In other words, we're setting pure hue into the layer stack. So if we go back to our cyans, now we can expand. So let's expand it over into the blues, and then we're going to expand it into the greens over here. Kind of look at our selection from that to that. That's not bad. Okay, blend it out into the greens. Maybe we'll blend it out into the purples and see what we're getting. As we can see, it's pretty strong. Now, the details that we're missing, we can hold down Alt or Option and click on our hue map. We see there's orange details that we're missing. But if we try to go into those details, we're going to run the risk of getting into the skin. So we have to just pick our poison there. What do we really want to do? We can pull an extreme and see what happens. That got the makeup a little bit better. All the little blue details and whatnot. That's a pretty good selection, so let's test it. We do have some shifting or some bleeding over into the eyes. And, oops, let me turn all this back on. We have some bleed over into the eyes, and that is because there's a little bit of blue in there, and that's okay. We'll turn off chroma. Okay, so that's not bad. I don't see that as too bad. We might want to take a little bit of the red out of the selection. There we go. Okay, so what we do is we use our tool here, make selection, and instead of deleting the layer stack, I'm going to turn it off temporarily, come back down here, go to hue and saturation, and then make a shift. Okay, that's not bad. That is not a bad shift at all. And unlike before, we have a selection now. A couple of things we can do. We can go to our, our actual mask, and we can increase the feather of it if we need or want to. Okay, we can also go to select and mask, open that up and do more. Okay, so we're kind of seeing what's happening with our selection there. That's not really all that bad, to be honest with you. We're gonna leave that alone. Okay, so now we've done that. On top of that, we can clean it up if we really need to. Remember on that eye? So we want to fix that real quick. Okay, so now we're running that. But on top of that, we can also do a colorize, and we can absolutely, instead of shifting what's there, we can colorize it to whatever we want it to be. So we wanted that purple with a little less saturation perhaps to match the vibe of the image. And then again, we can increase the feather if we feel that's going to help us. And naturally, while we're here, we can take a soft brush with like a 20% flow maybe, and we can increase these perimeters wherever we want if we feel we want to. And then we can also clean up. So this eye doesn't need all this coloring. So we're going to clean that and clean that. Okay, so now we have that and that. Furthermore, we can hold down Command or Control and click that mask and have that selection and do something else. Like I told you, we could do a curves with it. Okay, let me open this up a bit. There we go. So now we have a selection that we can play with. So we can do things with it. We can, let's turn off the curves a second. We can do more advanced things with it. We can make it a gradient map, like I said, if for some reason we want to play with that. So let's try one of these kind of creative, colorful ones or something like that. These are a little bit on the, I don't like those mezzos. That's not going to work for what we need here. How about something like this? And then we can change that to like hue or color. Let's go to hue. And then now we're doing something pretty significant with a gradient map. We can blend that in a little bit. All right, so you see the difference there. We went from this, which is beautiful, and the blue looks better, to be honest. But if for some reason we wanted a complicated change like that, those are cyans, we want to change them, we can do a selection with, a better selection with Photoshop using NBP Actions 15. That's just one example of what we can do with a complicated selection, because sometimes, you get what you get from MidJourney and you're like, it's cool, but I don't love the blue. I really wish I had something different. And now you suddenly have this pink. Let's say that was your vision, right? So that's one cool way to do a complicated selection on a MidJourney image, which oftentimes these AI images do have complicated regions that need more advanced selections. You can take all the time in the world to mask it manually, or you can use Actions 15. So here's another shot by Luca. That's beautiful. Very, very interesting. Got a lot of textures, a lot of things happening, a lot of deep shadows, a lot of bright highlights, a lot of opportunities for color grading here because MidJourney gave you something and that's cool. But what if we have tools like we have on NBP, just random tools, you know what I'm saying? So let's go here to full random grad shadows. Let's open that up. Okay. And now, actually, you know what? Let's increase the, let's go ahead and delete that real quick. We're going to start that one over because we're going to go full random without the shadows. So now we'll come here and hit random over and over. And you never know what we'll get. I want it a little bit stronger. So we're going to take the fill of that, again, make it like a 20. And then we keep clicking until we get something we like. There's a green tone, kind of bringing out the green accents. Deep purple. Ooh, I like the deep red. Let's try the deep red. Went from that to that. And now we have a beautiful deep red and we have a luminosity adjuster for that grade if we need to change it, just like we do on photos, guys. But now we, color grading is not new to anybody, I'm sure, and not new to most people, and certainly not new to Luca. But sometimes you don't know what you want. And if you're going to, roll the dice on MidJourney to get what you think you want, why not roll the dice with some random color? You know what I mean? Beautiful tool for that. And our randomizers exist on our color grading tools and Action 6. And we have a whole set of randomizers on Actions 13, which are really, really cool. So it's kind of fun to do that when you don't know exactly what you might want. Because, hey, MidJourney is a bit of a gamble anyway. Play some random color in there. You never know what you can get, and it can lead you in a cool direction after you got your rendering done. Let's look at this situation when it comes to making a complicated selection, okay? We have lots of similar tones here. The only tones that are different are going to be the blue tones, the subtle blue tones in the outfits and something in the background as well. For the most part, it's a monochromatic image. So my goal was to change the model, the AI model on the left side, camera left. If I were to change her outfit from red to something else, I need to make a selection. There's all kinds of gradations happening in there. I don't know what's going to happen, and there's reds everywhere. So let's do an analysis. Go back to Actions 15 for our selection. We're going to run our, full tilt hue map. Okay, so the good news is that it's pretty different. The outfit is nice and red. The blues are pretty separated and separated with cyan and whatnot. A little bit of blue and purple bleed over in some of these shadows. So those hues could be tricky. And we're going to see if we can target those without getting into the blue parts of the outfit. Because if we start masking all of that, we're just kind of, wasting time. We could do this manually. So let's see if we get successful. Let's see if we can do a super clean selection on the subject on the left on her red outfit and see if we can change her red outfit color quickly. So we're going to run hue range selection advanced subject. Almost certainly Actions 15's, when it runs subject selection, almost certainly it's going to pick both. So now let's turn this off for a moment, the entire layer stack. We're going to choose red just because we can, but we're going to use the eyedropper tool. Click there, brighten it, and look at the initial situation. Okay, so the initial situation, let's turn on our full hue data into it. Initial situation is that we have a lot of bleed over. So we opened up our hue and saturation selector and we go back to the reds, and then we're going to take it away from yellows, which is already helping there. Fantastic. Okay, that's cool. That helps us a lot. Let's look at the tones they're doing. Hold down Alt or Option and click our hue map. Okay, we have some purples in there. So let's expand into the purple, and that should help us there. There we go. That's definitely helping us there. See how far we can push it into purple without getting into the blue stripe or arrow looking graphic on the outfit. Let's see how far we can push this. Not bad. When you're making these advanced selections like this, you have to look at how quickly you can get most of what you want, and then, most of what you want, and is it a quick edit? And it is. See, the other subject, this is a fast edit. The subject in question, her head and hair, that's a fast edit. And then filling in these areas that are missing is a fast edit. We can do that right here with our black masking function inside Actions 15 layer stack. Now, counterintuitively, we paint with white and we quickly mask out the stuff we don't want, including the other subject. And we have to you have to decide how much you want to commit to up front. You can always change this later because a mask is a mask, okay? So we're going to get rid of all that. And then, again, we go to white masking on top, and we can quickly fill in some of our areas. We can do more details later with some of our areas here. And we're really concerned about, like, this little badge or medallion right here. We can paint with white on the black layer, and that's going to let us paint with black, okay? Something like that. So that's a pretty decent selection. Let's find out. So make selection. We're going to go ahead and delete the layer stack. Feeling pretty confident about this one. Go to hue and saturation. And then now we can shift the hue around And that works great. Look at that. We got a great selection. But we can also go to colorize if we really want to. And we can see about saturation boost, a little bit of brightness, but gently, because that's going to create haze. And now they have almost the same tone on, which is great. And if you really want to analyze, there's details that are missing. But just like any other masking, you have to determine how much of the masking do I want to be automated, and then I can fix these little details if I really want to, right? Because most of it is pretty much ready to go. So if I really, there's some transient blur pixels here, some noise pixels here that can be fixed and whatnot. And of course, what comes out of MidJourney for now and other ones isn't super high res. We're not exporting, 40 megapixel 16-bit renderings at the moment. I don't know if that'll change, but as you can see, we did a pretty radical difference change there. And here again, because we have a selection, we can also do anything to it, including curves, brighten it up to match the other outfit a little bit better. And so we went from this, and let's say we loved our rendering and thought it was great, but then we really want these outfits the same. It would have been a fairly complicated selection, but we still got it. Now, one thing that did happen, of course, is that the red outline on this blue area right here did change. If we didn't want that, we'd have to manually fix that. And of course, I ignored this red stripe on her collar as well. You can fix that manually as well. But still, the nuances of all the different hues was accounted for using Actions 15 because we could visualize exactly what we want. And we did a very quick, complicated selection to change the outfits, which again, could be done manually. But even with talking, I did it in under 2 minutes. I could probably do it in 15, 20 seconds normally with Actions 15. And that's really the hallmark of it, to be able to look at something and go, I want to do this, and then know that you can do it very, very quickly, or at least you have a good chance once you do your analysis. So a lot of times we get these beautiful renderings out of AI like Luca did here, and it's beautiful and it's wonderful, and there's so many different directions we can take it. You can even do a standard issue direct skin retouch on it and whatnot. But a lot of times, depending on your prompts and what you're going for, your rendering, and again, they're not super high res, but here we have skin texture, and MidJourney did a good job giving what I think Luca wanted, but where we could use some more texture. So what's the smartest way to go about doing this? Well, one option, of course, is NBP Texture Control Pro. So we're going to go ahead and run that. It's going to do multiple frequency extractions, and then we can pick and choose and play which one might work. And if there's enough texture in there, then this should work quite good for increasing texture. So as you can see, we have all kinds. It's a lower res image, and there's not a whole lot of texture in there to begin with. So I'm going to experiment immediately with some of the medium textures. Like, you know what? Let's just go ahead and try medium low. Okay, so let's try the skin real quick. Okay. So you can see we are bringing out some minor micro details in the skin, which MidJourney did not process, perhaps as detailed as, I'd want, maybe. Or maybe you did want, I don't know. I'm going to use a slightly different one because I know this has a lot of, see, that's really strong. So I'm going to use very high for that, so it won't be quite as strong on these little micro details. And then I can also change the opacity of that if I really want to. I can use extra high on the eyebrows if I want, and maybe the eyes to sharpen them up a bit, etc. And then maybe very high again for this hair. Now let's use high. Kind of bring out some of the details in the hair. Ooh, that's got a little bit specular there. So we're going to leave the hair alone and use a tighter one for there. So off, on. Let's look at our skin detail. Off, on. You see that? And although this is very, very MidJourney-like, it's not perfect. Think about it. Now we have a little bit more reality from this to this using various textures and skin textures that we want. Now, other things are also available too. So, let's go ahead and just sort of reset all the texture masks. If we use a median down here, which is our blurring operator. Let's say we put it on something significant like 15. And if we want to do some texture replacement, we can do that as well. So even though there's not a whole lot of bad texture here, but if for some reason we wanted to blur the forehead and remove most of the existing texture, but enhance the original texture in a different way, we can drag that mask into low. There we go. And now we've sort of smooth out a little bit, but preserve some of that texture. In fact, it's so little that we can't really tell anything. So we can double up and really get some texture in there. Okay, so now we have a different range in there, just providing a very, very, very obvious sense of sharpening on the skin tones. And it can be done with anything. All this fabric and everything else, we have texture high here. We can really sharpen this feathers that are right here. Really bring that out with its existing frequencies, all kinds of beautiful textures in this neck piece right here. Look at that. We can bring a lot of detail out with that. It's just a way to take, you have a shot, you like it, but you wish it had more reality and more texture. Well, if MidJourney has done a decent job, or DALL-E or whatever, done a decent job of rendering texture to begin with, you can enhance it in a smart way, not just arbitrarily running sharpen or adding noise. Those can be effective, but why not add the actual texture that's there that's been amplified? And that's what, Action 16 Texture Control Pro is all about. So on this other rendering by Luca, this is a great example to show what do we do if we have like another complicated selection we want to do. Let's say we enjoy the rainbow effect that we got on these outfits, on these jumpsuits, but somehow or another we're like, I'm not feeling the blue. I don't want the full rainbow. I want the blue to go away. Okay, cool. So you think, I got this. Hue and saturation once again. And I can go to cyans and shift them. And then I can go to blues and shift them. And I've got purples. And it's sort of working, I guess. And then I can expand the range a bit if I need to. It's getting a little bit weird there. Maybe in the blues, I can expand that range into the purples. No? That's getting weird too. Oh boy. Okay. And you can see there's a strong band around the blue right here that we're not accounting for, etc. We could have done a subject selection before this too, but it's not ideal, and we can play around with it. And even then, we don't end up with a selection. We end up with just a shift. So how do we get a selection? And here again, that's Actions 15 Advanced Selection. So we're going to duplicate and do a quick hue analysis, and we see that the blues are potentially targetable. The blues and cyans are definitely targetable. What's happening on this outfit is far more incidental on to camera right, but on camera left, all these blue areas and cyan areas could well be targetable. So let's find out. Let's run hue range selection advanced subject. Photoshop should definitely, mask out both subjects. That should be very easy to do. Here again, we're going to turn this off. We're going to go to blues. It does not matter. I'm going to use the eyedropper tool and choose some of those range, brighten it, and then look, and then send our full data into it. Already doing pretty darn good. But we have to consider that there is a purple fringe. Again, hold down Alt or Option. We can look at our hue map, and we see that this violet fringe here needs to be accounted for. So we want to make sure that our selection pulls out into that. Make sure we're accounting for it. Something like that. Okay, let's see if that's going to be too much or too little. While we're here, I'm going to paint with black to remove sort of the hair fringes. I don't think I want those. Again, I can change those later, but here we are. Okay, so make selection, delete hue stack, and let's go to hue and saturation. Let's see what we've done. Colorize. Okay, we have made it red, and it's a little bit on the fringe. It's not quite right. We can see about feathering and see that helps our blend a bit. It does a little. That's not bad. Not great, but it's not bad. Turn off colorize and just do some shifting. More purple, more pink. Turn off our feather. That is a complicated selection. Okay, so sometimes that happens. Let's try to do better. Let's run it again and see if we can really expand that range to not have quite as problematic of a fringe there, okay? So let's go to blues and ramp that up, and then we're going to go to cyans. No, we're not. We're going to go to blues, but we're going to expand that, turn on our data. Cool. I'm going to really push this out to see if we can really get as much of that as possible without getting too much into skin tone and other things. I think that might work. Really get that purple in there. Okay, a lot of different hues, and that's not bad. Let's see if sometimes pulling it out, expanding it the way I did makes a difference that we want. Let's find out. Make selection. We're going to go ahead and turn off the stack for the moment. Hue and saturation. Yeah, that's a bit of a cleaner selection. That works pretty well. Still the fringes in there, but that's what happens when we do the shifting. See if colorize is moderately better, and it is moderately better. Okay, so that's not too bad. Definitely a difficult selection to be sure, but we've gone and we removed our blues, and now they're a little bit better. Here is a case where that feathering might actually make a difference, and that looks okay. So again, a complicated selection that was basically impossible with color range, but far better with Actions 15. And that's the entire point of Actions 15 is complicated selections. Anyone who's played with MidJourney or DALL-E 2 or the others knows that it makes these engines make some artistic license choices. So here's a shot that Luca rendered, and it has a very obvious grading on it. It's very cool. It's got a little bit of a color cast on it. That's part of the look, and it works really, really well. But if you get an output like this and you think, I want to grade this, but I wish it was more white balanced, a couple things you can do. Actions 10 has all kinds of cool tools. So here's Actions 10. We're going to neutralize subject and background, and we can mess with them individually. So we're going to run that real quick and see what kind of result we get. Not bad. We're going to max those out here for the video. Okay, so it went from that with the green cast, and now it's a little bit more real-ish. There's definitely, MidJourney accounted for its lighting. So there's some green casting on the hair from what looks like some greenish lights, etc. But we are a little bit more real now in terms of like white balance, as if we photographed this with a proper white balance or a reasonable white balance. And we can just kind of leave that stack there. And then we can maybe put up curves, put on luminosity. Let's just kind of brighten that up a bit, etc. And then also on Actions, 10, which is our harmonize and tone tools. We also have like linear contrast. We can run that, and that's just going to make it as strong a contrast as it can out of the gate. I'm going to put curves on top of it. So now it went from this, which is a very, it's a bit of a final thought, if you will, from MidJourney. And then now we start with a shot that maybe looks like we photographed it, and then now we can begin exploring color grading and things of that nature, so we can create, a selective color and do our own creative grading. If that's what we want to do, and can really explore whatever it is that we feel like we want to do with our shot. Like, for example, for some reason, I'm going to make it more yellow and red. And then for whatever reason below that, I think I'll add a gradient map, and then I'll choose some of these gradients for whatever reason. Maybe this one, and I'll change that blend mode to like soft light, make that like a 30%. And now I went from MidJourney's decisions to mine with color. I like the red accents better than the greens. It's a beautiful shot, Luca, don't get me wrong. Beautiful shot, beautiful rendering. I like the reds better than the greens myself. So if this was my image, that's probably what I would do. And then I can also brighten the whole thing up a bit if I really, really wanted to, and just keep playing from there. Who knows what else I could do? But, a lot of times when you remove that color cast, it helps you have a different vision. You're like, okay, I like it, but I don't like the cast that MidJourney gave me. Remove it and then do your own grade. And you can go from cool idea, MidJourney, thanks, to more my idea. And that's what's cool about having tools like the NBP Action sets, is you have options to manipulate color and texture and contrast and luminosity and chroma and everything detailed. And it really, really shines on AI, because a lot of times we get these razor sharp images with tons of details. We can do that on photos as well. But with AI, we have all these options. And as of yet, AI is not outputting, like I said, 16-bit, 40, 60, 80 megapixel images. So these things happen really quickly. And there's a lot of, very satisfying things we can do when we're modifying our AI renderings, and NBP tools fit right into that. In fact, in some ways, they're actually even more fun than on photos. So, utilizing these things for AI is very, very rewarding.